Welcome to the Power Sports channel. My name is Richard. I want to thank everybody that watched my previous videos. I know my videos are pretty long, but I want to try to go and give my perspective. Once again, in no way, shape, or form am I associated with any major sports outlet or news outlets. I just like to give my perspective. First of all, this video is going to be about the Arizona Coyotes. I am a huge hockey fan. It's my favorite sport out of everything, out of all the sports. So, yeah, we're going to dive right in. I want to start with the Arizona Coyotes' inception when they first came to Arizona from Winnipeg. They had players like Keith Tkachuk, Timo Solani, I do believe Rick Tocchet was on that team. I do believe Jeremy Roenick was on that team. He might have been. Nikolai Khabibulin was on that team as well, that came here to Arizona. I do believe. Believe it or not, when that team first came here, I was like 8 or 9 years old. But personally, I do believe that team should have won the should have at least won one title because of the simple fact that they had so much talent on it. You don't just have Timo Solani, you have Keith Tkachuk. You don't just have Keith Tkachuk, you have Timo Solani, Keith Tkachuk, a very young Shane Doan, and a really good team around them. Keith Tkachuk, Timo Solani wind up leaving the team, and we wound up with Shane Doan. I have a Shane Doan autographed puck somewhere in my house. I can't find it anymore, but I am a legitimate fan of the Arizona Coyotes and just hockey in general. Another thing is this. Now we're going to move on beyond those early years. Once again, I've already said my piece about the simple fact that I do believe that they should have won a title. It doesn't matter because I feel like they should have been able to figure it out. You're going to have to beat hard teams. It is what it is. There are no cakewalks. Just like I was talking about the Phoenix Suns and their inability to get over the hump and beat the Milwaukee Bucks, even though they should have been able to beat the Milwaukee Bucks. You're gonna have to be able to beat some really good teams. Another thing is this. Now we're gonna move on. This might sound controversial for some people. This might not sound too great. I know. If you want to leave a comment in the chat about what I'm about to say, that's perfectly fine. I do believe there have been too many years where the Coyotes should have been a team contending for a top 5, top 10 pick, and we're contending for a top 15, maybe top 13 pick. Now, you might be saying, Richard, what do you mean by that? And I am glad you asked. What I mean is this. It's been too many years for the Coyotes where you haven't really had a really good team. If you look at the years that kind of led up to the Coyotes almost making it to the Stanley Cup Finals, you're not looking at a team that has a smorgasbord of high-end talent coming from the minors and jumping to the main team. What you see is free agent pickup here. Trading for players here. Now, don't get me wrong. When you find players like Ray Whitney, you got to sign them. When you find players like Radim Vrbata, you got to sign them. When you are able to get Antoine Vermette in a trade from the Columbus Blue Jackets, who were having a fire sale basically at the time, everyone must go. Even though I would have preferred it if we could have gotten Jeff Carter, of course, we would have had to put a better package of prospects or draft picks or whatever it is together to get them, it's still the simple fact that we are building this team through trades and free agency instead of a minor league system. Please understand that the majority of these teams out here are not winning championships because they went out in free agency and they traded for everybody. Look at the Colorado Avalanche who just won. Nothing but high-end talent. That is the type of team I want the Arizona Coyotes to be in a few years. Very good, high-skilled offensively, number one. That team is capable of putting goals in your net at the drop of a hat. At the drop of a hat. Defensively, they are very good. They are a very fast skating team. Very skilled. Players like Mikko Rantanen, Landeskog, McKinnon, Kale Maker, they wind up getting the goalie from here in Arizona, Darcy Kemper. He winds up winning a Stanley Cup with them. It is what it is. But they won a Stanley Cup. You're not looking at these teams and watching them trade for their main superstars. It's too expensive. It takes too much. You'll gut your team and your minor league system trying to do that. It doesn't work that way. But those years in between that old team and this new team, the one that wound up going deep in the playoffs, and I do believe either in 2011 or 2012. Don't get me wrong, I do believe there were some years where the Coyotes did make it to the playoffs and did ultimately lose to the Detroit Red Wings. Once again, Detroit Red Wings, another team built through the draft. Pavel Datsyuk, a 9th round pick. Thomas Holmstrom, 11th round pick, I think. Henrik Zetterberg. I don't even think any of these guys are first round picks. You're talking about players that are capable of putting up 30 point or more campaigns consistently, and they weren't even first round picks. You build through the draft. Once again, once we got to those playoffs, you're looking at almost a pretty good amount of the team was free agents, trades. Anybody that was really impactful outside of like maybe Shane Doan was from another team. Mike Smith was from the Dallas Stars. Ray Whitney, I do believe it just come from Carolina, the Carolina Hurricanes. Radim Vrbata, another team. Radim Vrbata's original team was the Chicago Blackhawks. Once again, if we would have drafted better, we could have been in a better position. Now, once again, now we move beyond those playoffs. But I love seeing the Coyotes make that deep playoff run. It was pretty awesome. I just wish we could have won the title. Now we move beyond that. Once again, you're back to kind of like mediocrity. You know, we are striving to be average when it would have been better to possibly get a top 10 pick. And the team is still 4 years away from being in a playoff spot again. 3 years, 4 years. Now, I can live with the 13th or the 15th pick if we're like a year or two away from contending. But I can't live with the 13th or the 14th, the 15th pick when we are 4 or 5 years down the line. Now, I can understand also as well if we had just contended and went deep in the playoffs the year before, and then we're trying to run it back again to see if we can possibly do the same exact thing. I can respect that. But when we see it's not working, it's time to tear it down to the studs, start getting draft picks in, and we go from there. Then we start talking about the draft where Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, and Dylan Strome were in. Once again, I'm going to say something that a lot of people might not like, but I had a feeling that Dylan Strome was not going to be a good pick for the Arizona Coyotes. I kind of felt like there was just a part of me that he might have benefited maybe quite a bit from being on the same team as Connor McDavid. He's the type of player that tears up the minor leagues. He puts up 60, 70 points, but once he gets up to the main team, not good. Not good at all. It is what it is. Basically, if you would have taken anybody else other than Dylan Strome in the top 11 picks, you probably have a 50-point producer, 60-point producer. Because basically everybody from basically pick 1 through 11, except for him, actually produced. That's a little fun fact there. That ain't that a kick to the teeth. And there's no guarantee that these players work out, but it is kind of weird how all of these players basically, for the most part, made it work. Now, I don't know exactly where these players are now, but the good majority of them are still pretty good. And get this, remember when I brought up Keith Tkachuk earlier in the video? One of his sons were actually in that draft. So there's Brady Tkachuk, and then there's Matthew Tkachuk. Both of them are really good, but we don't have either one of them. And that's perfectly fine. You know, you live and you learn. Once again, that was a failure. The Coyotes drafted Dylan Strome. They gave him, I think, 2 years, maybe a year in the minors, then tried to bring him up, saw it wasn't working, sent him back down. He starts tearing up the minors again, just obliterating the opposition. You bring him back up again, still not working. It is what it is, once again. You have a lot of years in between that and now. And it's just a lot of time, a lot of years where you're not drafting well enough. Yes, we drafted Clayton Keller. Yes, we drafted Jacob Chikrin. But at the same time, you can only really think of maybe 2 or 3 players since roughly 2012 that have actually been able to really produce. Nick Schmaltz, he's from another team. Lawson Krause, I would say he's pretty good. He's pretty good. It just doesn't really feel like we have that type of impact players that we need. Another thing is this. We had another top 5 pick. His name was Barrett Hayton. It's looking like he's a bust. He's a center. They were hoping that he would hopefully be a franchise center, basically number 1 guy on your depth chart when it comes to offense. You know, in the game of hockey, you build your team basically from the center down. So if you have a really good center, hopefully you're able to get other players around him to build a really good team. Because number 1, the center is so important because he actually is one of the anchors of the defense. And plus, if you don't have good centers that are capable of winning faceoffs, You are constantly going to be on the defensive all the time. So that's why it's so important. And the center needs to be able to help you score goals and things of that nature. Um, the teams, the main teams that have been able to win championships have very high skilled centers. I'm gonna run through some names. The Colorado Avalanche, Nathan McKinnon. In my opinion, a top 3 player in this game right now. The type of player I do believe the Arizona Coyotes need. Um, then you have the Tampa Bay Lightning. You have players like Steven Stamkos, who is a center, very good player, getting older, maybe starting to slow down a little bit, but that's okay. And the Tampa Bay Lightning also have Braden Point, very good player as well. Another thing is this: if you look back at the Chicago Blackhawks, they had oh my God, what is his name? But he was really good too. If you look at the Los Angeles Kings, who wound up beating the Coyotes back when the Coyotes were possibly going to win a Stanley Cup championship if they would have just made it to one more round, had Jeff Carter, Anze Kopitar, players like that. So if you look at what I'm saying, having really good centers help, and then getting talent around them. So it is what it is. Once again, the Coyotes have not been able to draft the way they needed to. We did have that one year where the Coyotes were in the bubble. They were invited, they made the playoffs and got stomped by the Colorado Avalanche. I don't really count that as the playoffs because technically I don't really think the Coyotes should have been there. I know that that's not cool, and I know that this bubble happened during the pandemic, and it was so awesome to see them play Colorado, but ultimately I don't think they should have been there. It should have been somebody else. It is what it is once again. Now, we've been mediocre for quite a while. I'm going to be wrapping up this video soon. Once again, I am a huge fan. I know that this video is rather negative. I do love this team, but at the same time, you have to be honest. You have to be honest. And then it doesn't help that the team has been owned by the league for quite a while. And then they weren't able to get a stadium where they needed to get the stadium at. They needed to put that initial stadium in Scottsdale, but they couldn't do it. Then the owner, I do believe, winds up filing for bankruptcy, and the team winds up being owned by the NHL. Yes, a professional sports team can actually be owned by its actual commissioner. If for some reason something happens to the original owner. It's not preferred, but in the case of an emergency, it can work. So that's basically that. Now they have a new owner. His name is Alex Morello, the first, I do believe, Latin American owner of like an NHL team or something like that. But then you're hearing stories about he's not paying his bills and things of that nature. And I remember I was at a game where like the crowd just booed the living crap out this guy. When wow, okay, so it is what it is. And I was at the final game when the Coyotes played their final game at Gila River Arena. Now we're moving to a 5,000 seat arena with the Arizona Sun Devils hockey team. We're still trying to get a new stadium again. They should not have moved all the way to Glendale. It is very hard to get out there, but I love the arena nonetheless. Now I'm going to wrap this video up really quickly by talking about this latest draft that happened. So I do feel that the Coyotes did have a pretty good draft. There are some people that feel that the Coyotes could have made a better pick when it came down to their second pick. It's just that for me personally, it's just so important that they draft well. That's what's most important. In my opinion, the Coyotes should have drafted Shane Wright at number 3. He was initially slated to go number 1, but for some reason he fell all the way to number 4. I wish the Coyotes would have taken a chance and drafted him at number 3 instead of allowing him to get to the Seattle Kraken. Personally, I don't really have much of a problem with who they drafted once again. It just, I don't know if this is a problem of the Coyotes not being able to understand how to develop these players or what, or are the players unwilling to be developed? But we got to figure this out. So we just got to figure these things out. And hopefully by the time we get the new stadium, if it gets approved by the Tempe City Council, which is not a definitive yes, it's not a definitive no, but this team's got to be a lot better. So, yeah. That's it for this video. Thank you.